Hello. How are you all doing? I hope you are well today. Merry Christmas. I can't believe it is Christmas again already, but Merry Christmas. I hope you are having a wonderful holiday season so far. I have not been very active on here recently. I haven't been very well. I know there's lots of nasty things going around, but I wanted to hop on here today to make potentially my favourite video of the year, which is just a full roundup of my houseplant collection and take you through my top 10 plants. I say 10, there's technically 11, there's a bonus plant, but my top 10 from 2025. I really put a lot of thought into this video, and there's a lot that you might be surprised maybe didn't make the list, but I feel like I've chosen all of the ones that I've chosen for good reason. And yeah, I will talk to you a little bit about the what's, the where's, the who's and the why's when we get to each plant. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learned over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And all of the ones that I'm going to take you through in this video, as I say, have been absolute favourites for me this year. So if you're looking for maybe some things to add to your wish list for next year, or just get some ideas about new fun plants to grow, hopefully this will be useful. But yes, I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. Okie dokie. So with these kind of videos, I often say I haven't put these plants in any particular order. However, today I have ranked these plants. So we're going to work from, obviously this is my top 10. We're going to work from least to favourite. However, even the least is still a favourite because it's on the top 10 list. However, bonus plant, one that didn't quite make the top 10, but I still just wanted to include in this video because although visually it's not that exciting to look at, this is a plant that I would say out of all of the plants in my collection probably excites me the most. And it is the Welwitschia mirabilis, and I have spoken about this plant quite a lot over the past year. I grew it from a seed, and it's commonly known as the living fossil plant, and I feel like I first heard about this on David Attenborough or something, and in fact, it's when I was researching for my Weird Plants series, I believe, that I first came across this one. And although it doesn't look like much at the moment, this plant can essentially live for thousands and thousands and thousands of years in its natural habitat. And I'll put a picture on the screen of what it looks like when it is found in nature. It looks really weird. And when I was researching for that video, I saw that plant and I was like, that's kind of, I don't know, it almost looks like, I was going to say prehistoric, kind of fossil-like, which is obviously the common name for this plant, but it just felt like something that I would have no interest in growing. And then I came across it grown as a houseplant, as a pot plant, and I will again put some pictures on the screen of what it looks like when it's a little bit more mature as an indoor plant or a plant cultivated in a home environment, because oh my goodness, it looks so cool. It looks so awesome. And yeah, this one was a struggle to get going. I think I had about 5 seeds to start with, and this is the only one that has made it this far. But I would like to say that we're out of the woods now. I have been growing it for over a year. I think it's probably about a year and 4 months at this point since germination. And what I have just started to see now is that the leaves, the big kind of 2 leaves here, which are, by the way, the leaves that it will have forever. It will never grow any more leaves, only those 2. But they're starting to kind of just move a little bit more. Like in the mornings, they'll be up, and then at the end of the day, they'll be down. And I can also just see there's like a rigidity to the leaves that is starting to form, which really excites me. And I can start to see little elements of what I see when I see pictures of it as a mature plant. So fingers crossed, it keeps growing strong for me. And next year, who knows, next year maybe, I don't know if it's, I've never grown it, so I don't know if maybe it's going to speed up and maybe the form is going to really change. But yeah, it's just one that has excited me, but perhaps isn't the most exciting to some of you. I can appreciate that it's not currently the most interesting to look at. But then the top 10, the official top 10, the first one on, or number 10 on the list, should I say, is one that maybe I haven't spoken about that much, but it's one that is just consistently a favourite in my collection. And it is my Alocasia mitchellitziana, which has been turned to face the window in the plant room, meaning that loads of its leaves are going in different directions. But there we go, just look at that. Isn't it just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful plant? And this is one that I used to bang on about all the time. When I first got this plant, I was just blown away. I thought it looked more like a cartoon plant than a real plant. I think just because it's very it doesn't feel very three-dimensional. It feels quite flat, like the veination almost just feels like it's been drawn on. And yeah, it's one that just blew my mind, and I took a while to get to know. I didn't get on particularly well with this plant when I was growing it in soil. I can say that about several alocasias in my collection, in fact, and now I am growing it in pure semi-hydro with a water reservoir at the bottom. That's made life so much easier, and that is how I've been growing it, I think, for at least 2 years now. But it is one of my hardiest alocasias since I've set it up in this way, and it's just one that constantly has stayed looking really lovely and happy this year. I have been using biological pest control this year, and that has made such a massive, massive difference, because I have found that this, obviously it's a velvet leaf alocasia, can be very susceptible to pests. I think I've definitely had thrips and spider mites on it. I think I might have found mealybugs on this one as well, which for an alocasia is not maybe what you would think. But yeah, now that I've kind of got regular with my biological pest control, so much stuff has just become easier. And this has just been a plant that, again, I can just look at when I walk into my planty space and just appreciate without having to worry about so much. So yeah, I just think it's gorgeous. I feel so lucky to grow it, and it is one that, I know I was saying about having duplicates in my collection, but if I had good enough lighting and like multiple zones in my house without having to use loads of grow lights, I would just have a plant like this in every corner, because it's just so eye-catching and so lovely, and it makes me happy. So yeah, that is the reason that it's made the top 10. As I say, it is one that I feel fairly consistent with nowadays, and therefore don't maybe talk about as much as others, but I still love it very much. And then this next one is quite a big one. I will maybe have to put some clips in a bit. However, I did cart all of my plants over to the living room so that I could film this video with the Christmas tree in the background. But there we go, we can see a little bit of it here. It is the Rhaphidophora foraminifera, and this is a plant that I have had for a couple of years now. I got it as a one-leaf cutting at another plant swap the year before last, I believe, and it's just grown like a weed. It has been one of the hardiest plants I think I've ever grown. And I mean, Rhaphidophora as a genus is quite well known for being quite hardy, but I think when I first got the cutting of this one, I don't think I'd ever tried any type of Rhaphidophora apart from the Tetrasperma, which is commonly known as the Monstera minima. And I was a bit scared of this one because I know that it's one that's kind of deemed quite rare, and people are like, oh, that's the Rhaphidophora foraminifera. It's a tongue twister. But yeah, it's just a plant that has been super quick to grow for me. Again, now that I've set it up in the right way, I've recently just combined two sections of it. There's like a little section here at the bottom that is hopefully going to grow up and make the whole plant feel much more full. But yeah, again, I'm growing it in semi-hydro. I do love semi-hydro growing for a lot of plants. And yeah, this one has just become a breeze since I did that. I will just fill its reservoir every couple of weeks or so whenever I notice it's starting to get low. And apart from that, it has just given me the most insane amount of growth. And I'm kind of, I'm on the edge about what I do with this plant next, because I know some of you guys have said, why don't you continue to chop it? I could do that. I know I could do that, but also there is just something in me that when I start growing a plant, I'm like, I want this plant to be the biggest and the best thing ever. And sometimes that kind of comes to the point where I like, not that I fall out of love with the plant, but that I reach a point where I'm like, okay, I think I'm done now. Like, for example, I'm not saying that I will never do it again, but my Monstera dubia, if you guys have been on my channel for a little while, you will remember my massive, massive Monstera dubia that I did chop up and I did get rid of some cuttings, and I now don't have in my collection. And I thought I would really miss that plant, and I don't, because I think now I've got other focuses. I have no regrets in growing that plant. It brought me so much joy, and like I say, I may well grow it again. But I'm like, will that maybe be the case with this one? I can't see that happening right now, but who knows? Who knows? But what I am thinking is it's currently growing on a moss pole and it's incredibly rooty. Again, I'll put some clips in at the back so that you can see all of the roots. They are crazy. But I think I might let it just keep growing off the moss pole. And then what I'm actually thinking is attaching a few pieces of cork bark to the wall in my plant room, kind of going even more like naturalistic and trying to just make things feel a little bit more, I guess, how they would be in nature, and then letting it root onto that and kind of climb the walls. So yeah, that is something that I'm very much considering. But the thing that I love the most about this plant, and it is the only plant, not just in my collection now, but the only plant I've ever grown or encountered, I think, that has fenestrations that are just right close to the centre vein. Typically, when you see fenestrations in a plant, those kind of splits in the leaves, they'll happen towards the outside of the leaf, and then sometimes you can get kind of like secondary and tertiary fenestrations, which will be closer to the main centre. But this one is just so unique, and the fenestrations just somehow feel very intentional. I don't know, it's almost like someone's got a hole punch or something and just kind of gone along and cut little snowflakes out of them or something. So yeah, it's one that I love. I also just, more and more nowadays, I think as life gets busier, I just love a plant that is fairly low maintenance. There's some, in fact, the one that we are coming to next that I will talk to you about, that I love tending to a lot, but there's some that just give you so much reward for not that much effort. And it's so nice to have plants like that in your collection. So yeah, this is hands down a favourite and one that I'm just really excited about going forward. So yes, talking of finicky plants, this next one, in fact I've got two to show you, has been one that I have not owned for a full year. However, it's made the list. It's made the list because it's just that great. And it is the Anthurium warocqueanum. And if you guys have watched my other videos, you will know that I have struggled so much with this Anthurium over the years. And it's not to say that I won't continue to struggle with this plant, but touch wood, I do feel like I've turned such a massive corner with this plant this year. I've actually got two. I know I've said it in videos before, but I went and bought myself this teeny tiny one, which was, I think, only about 2 tiny leaves at the time. It was like a little seedling. I bought myself that from RHS Wisley when I went to their garden centre. And then someone on my Patreon very kindly sent me this from Grow Tropicals, which did not have this lovely leaf at that time. It just had these two, which, although are still very gorgeous and sizable leaves, I'm like, that leaf is me. I did that, which is just insane because I have killed so many warocqueanums over the years, and I really got to the point the last time a warocqueanum died in my care. It was about a year. It was about 10 months ago actually, because it was just after I moved in here. I repotted that warocqueanum when I first moved in, and I was like, I'm setting it up for success, and then it died shortly after. I kind of vowed that I wouldn't get any more for a while, and these two just came about at very random points, and I have just really had to adapt, try new things, I guess kind of just experiment a little bit more outside of my comfort zone, which is what I love about plants. It really forces you to do that sometimes. I can be very, very good at just being quite set in my ways with planty things and being like, nope, I know what works, I know what doesn't, I'm not going to try new things. And the massive thing that I've discovered for this plant is firstly that it needs so much more water than I thought. Like right now, the plant is actually quite dehydrated and the moss on top isn't even completely dry. But I've also planted it in a pond pot, which has obviously just got the most insanely great aeration for the roots, meaning that because the roots do get so much air and airflow, if I was to water this plant every couple of days, I mean, that might be a little bit excessive, but even if I was to do that, the risk of root rot would be fairly minimal compared to if I was growing it in a pot actually like this one, which I'm growing the smaller one in. And so yeah, I have also had luck growing in this way with this type of plant, but I do think when it comes to potting this plant up, which actually probably will be quite soon because it was in a tiny pot when I first got it, but already it is starting to outgrow this one. And I think I will also get it into a pond pot. I know I could pot them up together, but I quite like the idea of kind of having a backup and still being able to mix up conditions and try things and just kind of safeguard myself so that I can continue to grow this plant long term. But yeah, I feel like I don't even need to explain why I love the Warocqueanum. It just ticks all the boxes for me. It's got the lovely form, it's got the length in those leaves, it's got the dramatic veination. It's just picturesque and beautiful. It really is beautiful. As I say, I personally have found it very challenging. That is just my experience. I know a lot of other people in the community have also said that, but then again, there's going to be some plants that are great for some and not so good for others. So personally, I wouldn't put it as a beginner plant, but I'd say if you're up for a bit of a challenge and are very prepared to keep on top of watering and monitoring, then why not give it a go? It's absolutely gorgeous. And then another very big one that I'm not convinced, it kind of fits in shot, but you can get a sense of just how big those leaves are now. Just look at that. But it is my Regal Magnificum hybrid. And again, this is one that I've had for just over a year now. I was sent it as a a tiny import. It was not tiny by any means. I think its biggest leaf was about that. And immediately I just fell in love with it as a hybrid. I thought it was stunningly beautiful. I love the Magnificum and I love the Regal, but I really struggle with the Regal. Maybe I might give that a go again at some point, but as a purebred Anthurium, I really struggle with it. I've said it before as well, often if you do struggle with just one individual species, going for a hybrid can just give you a more diverse gene pool and mean that sometimes they are more hardy to grow. And in my experience with this type of plant, that has been the case. But the biggest thing for me that I feel like I've really overcome with this plant this year is the fact that previously, every single time this plant would start to give me a new leaf, which was not very often, every new leaf, as it started to kind of size up and harden off, as Anthuriums typically do, would get really dry and cracked, and it would have those classic yellow halos going all the way around the outside of the leaves, and they would just end up kind of like this leaf here, because this one is one of the older ones, just looking a little bit battered and rough around the edges. And I was like, I don't understand why that's happening. I'm doing all of the right things. I'm fertilizing at a good rate. I'm keeping the temperature how this plant likes it. And a couple of things that I have switched out this year that I maybe wouldn't have thought to do last year or previously without kind of responding to this plant a little bit, but I've transferred it into sphagnum moss, and that is purely what I'm growing it in at the moment. I know perhaps it wouldn't be the recommended way of growing this plant, but I have just found it works really well, and I found that I have less issues since I have made that change. And recently, in the last kind of 3-4 months, I've also started playing about not just with the fertiliser that I already use, which is liquid gold leaf. I use it for all of my houseplants, but I've also started adding in a Calmag fertiliser, which is basically just a calcium magnesium supplement for your plants. That was a theory actually from one of you guys in the comments of my videos. You said, have you thought of trying this? And I kind of thought, well, no, actually I have. I've tried other things, but that's something I haven't tried for this Anthurium. And since I have started doing that, I have got the most beautiful leaf from this plant. It's not without damage completely, but it also is close to the floor by the waggy tail, so I think it's done pretty well. And it just feels like I've turned a massive corner with this plant. I would say in general, actually, Anthurium wise, I feel like I've come a long way this year. So yeah, it's one that I'm really excited to continue to grow. I mean, my God, I'm showing you some big plants now, so what the heck are they going to be like this time next year? I don't even know. If this one is giving me leaves like this now, I know I kind of jokingly talk about extending the house, but there is a reality to that situation. I am going to have to get rid of some big plants or chop some things back or create some more space. But yeah, I've just loved it. I think it is such a beautiful statement plant as well. Whenever Even my non-planty friends come over and they kind of walk into my planty space and they're like, oh my God, that one's gorgeous. And yeah, it's just brought me a lot of joy, as you can probably tell. And then another one that I don't talk about as much as I used to, I think because it has just become, again, a really lovely, easy plant that I've just got to know now, but is the Aglaonema pictum tricolour. And I know I talk a lot about Aglaonema as a genus. It is hands down my favourite genus of plants. It's up there. I don't know if it's my number one genus, but it is one of my favourites to grow. And actually there's loads I could have put on this list. I've got the stripes just there by the fireplace, and that one is also one of my favourites. But the pictum tricolour is a little bit different from the other ones that I own, just because of the texture, firstly, of the leaves. It's very velvety. And I just find it a little bit more finicky, not massively so, but I find that this is one that requires slightly more specific care than a lot of my other Aglaonema would. I think that's fair to say. This one, for example, I wouldn't personally grow in super low levels of light, whereas some of my other Aglaonema not only cope really well in lower levels of light, but they also thrive. This is one that, again, I'm growing in semi-hydro, but I haven't repotted it actually since I got it. And I got this plant about a year and a half ago when I went to Bath with Ross. Me and Ross had a little weekend away, popped into a lovely plant shop when we were there, and I found this one as like a teeny tiny little, not plug plant, but maybe it was a plug plant, I don't know. But as you can see, it's now also had a little flurry of babies that have popped up at the bottom. If I turn it around, you can kind of see. And in fact, I just noticed there is another one just there that's starting to pop up as well. And these little babies are bigger than the plants. The whole plant was when I first got it. So it's grown amazingly for me in the time that I've had it. I just love the foliage. It literally looks like someone has printed like cartoon camouflage. It doesn't look real, and I just think that is so cool. It is so awesome. And yeah, although it is, so like with a lot of my other Aglaonema, if they're kept in good conditions, they don't lose their foliage. This one does become very kind of upright and tree-like. And I know that that is technically normal for this type of Aglaonema, but I'm also quite happy that now that the little babies have come in at the bottom, they're covering that bare stretch of stems. So hopefully, if I just continue to pot size up and separate babies maybe as and when, I can keep the plant looking lovely and full. Yeah, I'd say this one does fall into the easy category. But again, I mean, this goes with so many plants, doesn't it? But it's just about setting them up in the right way. And yeah, semi-hydro, good light, it becomes very easy. It becomes very easy. I was going to say as well, these last few months, I haven't run my humidifier in my plant room really at all. It's actually kind of made me wonder if I even need my humidifier anymore. Not because I have like astoundingly great natural humidity here. I think actually at this time of year, we need to change the windows in our house. It's an expensive thing to do, so we're putting it off. But we get a lot of moisture build-up around the windows because the middle bit has blown. It doesn't have air pressure in there. I think that's what it is. But I think because of that, when we wake up in the morning, there is quite a lot of humidity in the air, which does mean we have to be very careful about things like mold. Making sure we've got good circulation is important. So again, fans, opening windows. But it has just meant that I really haven't needed to do much for my plants. So that's been a perk of all of this, despite having to clean the windows all the time. But yeah, I love this Aglaonema so much. The other thing I was going to say is earlier this year, it did actually flower for me. I think 3 times it put out a bloom. And when that happened, I noticed, and you can see actually this teeny tiny little leaf just here, I noticed that its growth got really small. And I was like, what's going on? I was like, why is the plant suddenly not happy? And then I noticed these blooms coming out. And personally, I always say, if you're not going to pollinate the plant, why not remove the blooms? And I did that. And as soon as I did that a couple of times, the plant did start going back to giving me lovely growth again, and the leaf size has increased. So long may that last. Long may that last. But yeah, I just adore this plant so much. And I want to say I have had this next plant about a year, maybe just under a year, but again, it is one that has made the list. and it is the variegated Alocasia Sarian. And oh my goodness, I wanted this plant for such a long time before I actually got it. In fact, I didn't even want the variegated variety, I just wanted the plain green one. I'd seen pictures of it online, and again, I'll pop some pictures on the screen so that you can see the potential of this plant, because this one can get ridiculously huge. It's a hybrid plant. It's a cross between the Michelitziana and the Zebrina, and if you have a look at the stems, you can see it is super stripy and zebra-like. And so I got this one on eBay for I think about £75, which I know is a lot to spend on what at the time was a very little plant, but I had stalked every corner of the internet trying to find this plant for a price I was happy with, and for me it was a really good investment. When I first got it, I think it was about that tall. It was in a tiny little pot, and it had leaves that were about that big, and if you look at it now, it's just done so well. And I know that once this plant gets going and kind of finds its rhythm, it can size up quickly. So again, we're gonna go into 2026 with some very big plants, I think, but already this one right now is getting ready to give me a new leaf. That one is starting to die out, which is its last smaller leaf. At one point that was its biggest leaf. But yeah, I'm just so happy with how this plant's doing. And on the whole, I wouldn't say I'm a massive one for variegated alocasias. Oh, in fact, like even variegated plants in general. Like there's a lot of variegated plants I love, but I know some people go crazy over like variegated anthuriums, variegated alocasia, and I'm just a bit impartial to it a lot of the time. I've got some that I love, but more often than not, like for example, it's the Michelitziana that made my list and not the Frydek. Spoilers. But yeah, like I just think that this one, I think because the variegation is so distinguished and it doesn't look like disease in the way that sometimes it can a little bit with variegation. Like, oh, look at this leaf. Isn't that just perfect? So yeah, it's just one that I still feel so privileged to own. I think because I hunted for this plant for so long, it's just one that's really been worth it. And you know how sometimes, I've had this a couple of times before actually, but there have been times in the past where I've ogled over a plant online for absolutely ages and eventually gone, okay, I found one, I'm going to do it. And then I get the plant and I'm a bit like, oh, okay. And I just don't feel as amazed by it as I thought I would, which is sad when that happens. However, this one definitely does not fall into that category. It's one that feels so special to me. I just love it. I know I'm saying that about all of them, but I really love it. Yeah, I feel like I could talk about it all day, but that probably wouldn't be very exciting for any of you. But yeah, I could have even put it higher on this list, to be honest, but I stand firm with where it is. And yet another very big one is my Musa Florida variegata, which again actually is a variegated plant. Maybe I love variegated plants more than I know. But this one, at the beginning of this year, was a teeny tiny little thing. I remember when I moved in here and I made a video, I think it was my second or third video, when I was kind of giving you guys some updates and showing you how all the plants had travelled. This one was in a tiny little cup in my cabinet and I had been rerouting it because it hadn't been in a good way. And it must have been about that big then. It was so small. And in fact, I did an Instagram post the other day where I was kind of doing a bit of a recap of some of my yearly highlights. And there was a picture of me and Misha and Luke, who are on the team for ITV Gardening Club. And I was holding this plant in the picture and I looked at it and I was like, oh my goodness, it was so small. And again, check out how much this has sized up. It's just bonkers. It really blows my mind. And actually bringing this plant over here for this video is the first time in a while that I've actually kind of taken it down off the little shelf table that I've got it on and stood next to it, and I was like, this plant is like, when I lift up its leaves, it's like up to there on me almost. It's really crazy. But yeah, I just love the structure of this plant. I love the subtle, again, like it's not variegation that feels like it's getting in the way of appreciating the beauty. It just feels like beautiful little brush strokes of different shades of white all over the leaves, and it's so pretty. And yeah, I think because when I first got this plant, I kind of thought that it was just going to be an absolute drama queen. I got it from Downtown Plant Club, and as I say, when I first got it, its root system was not great. Loads of leaves died back initially, and I was like, oh no, I was like, already it's off to a bad start. I chopped it all back, rehabbed it, and yeah, it has turned into, again, a plant that I wouldn't say is necessarily easy per se compared to some of my others, but it has become, again, quite low maintenance. And I must say, again, guess how I'm growing it? I'm growing it in semi-hydro. It has just worked wonders for this plant, because I just think like root health with plants like this that are so rooty, like this one grows like the most insane roots so quickly. It's so much easier to make sure that things like rot don't happen when you are growing in a substrate that is more porous and offers the plant's roots more aeration. So yeah, again, I know there's lots of different ways that you can grow this plant, but semi-hydro has been a bit of a game changer for me. And yeah, again, when it gets really big, what will I do? I don't know. I'm going to be crossing many bridges next year, I think, and thinking about all of this. But right now, it's just one that I walk into my planty space and I just ogle over. I just think it is so beautiful. It's sizing up so well, and it's sizing up and growing so consistently as well. Like literally every single time, even at this time of year, it gives me a new leaf. I'll be able to see in the petiole like the start of another new leaf already. And I've noticed as well that it is kind of part of the cycle of the plant for the lower leaves to often die off. Like you can see this one here is quite small and it's starting to brown a little bit. But that doesn't worry me so long as the plant is continuing to grow and size up. Also, I have seen this plant growing in its natural habitat, and that does seem to be the pattern there as well. So yeah, it's just great. And then another anthurium, and this one has come such a long way for me this year. It is the Anthurium El Condor, and this is its most recent leaf, which obviously is beautiful, absolutely picturesque beautiful. But I've had this plant for over a year now, and in that time, in fact, it almost kind of spirals round so you can see where it started versus where it is now. Over my time of having this plant and growing this plant, the form has just evolved and changed so much, which I find such a lovely fun thing about growing plants. This is the picture, this leaf, this is like the picture of the plant I saw when I first came across it, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's amazing. Managed to find a teeny tiny one. I think that was the leaf it had when I first got it. It almost looks like a pothos leaf, doesn't it? But yeah, managed to find a teeny tiny one from Eastern Tropicals, I think. And it has just done really, really well. And again, has been one that I was a bit nervous about, to be honest, when I first got, because I have had issues with similar looking anthuriums in the past and ones that feel very similar. Like for example, my Anthurium balanauum, that one has just been like not a nightmare, but I have had fungal issues, I've had bacterial issues, I've had root issues, I've had all sorts of things over the years, whereas this one has just kind of got on with it, and with every new leaf I've just been able to see so much development in the plant. Like every single new leaf has made me so excited. Like you can see with this one here, it was kind of starting to get its form. It was starting to get those lobes there at the top, like little Mickey Mouse ears. And this one here, not only has it got the beautiful lobiness, but also you can see that the sides of the leaf are starting to ruffle quite a lot. And that will just continue as the plant continues to grow and mature, because if you look at pictures of this plant in its natural habitat, it has not like, I was going to say like pallidiflorum length leaves, like not maybe that long, but I've seen pictures of leaves that are about that narrow and that long. They are insane. And again, just ticks so many boxes for me in terms of texture, shape, just all the elements that I really love encapsulated in one beautiful plant. And this one actually, decoratively, I'm growing it in an old wine cooler, but I've actually got it in, I believe, a pasta jar. And this is one that I've got semi-hydro on the bottom and then soil on top. And for now, that is doing the plant really well. I can see, just going through and talking about the ones I'm talking about now, I've got some major repotting to do. This one, yeah, would absolutely benefit, I think, from a pot upgrade, just because I can see it is so rooty in there. But yeah, that's done it well for the time that I've grown it. I think I've always grown it in this way, and it's worked really well. So yeah, I adore it. I love it so much. And a couple of years ago, I would never have thought that I would be putting a begonia on my top 10 list, but this one here has become the apple of my eye, and it is the Begonia goegoensis, and I love this begonia so much. I've had it for just over a year now, I think. Lovely India, who is Begonia Addict on Instagram, she very kindly sent me some begonias. I think it was the end of last year. I think it was in the lead up to Christmas. And this was one of them. It was teeny tiny at the time. I'd never even heard of it before, and I had no idea about the potential of the plant. And now, if you just look at my hand compared to the size of those leaves, it is giving me some crazy, 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 crazy leaves. And I just love it. Again, you guessed it, growing it in semi-hydro, so it's going to be a little bit drippy. But I just wanted to show you the little leaf there. See that little red thing? That is how all of its new leaves come in. And they get bigger and bigger and bigger like that. And you can see if I turn the plant round at the back, it's got these gorgeous kind of, they're not fully red, but as they harden off and size up, they are quite pinky. But it is also quite a robust begonia, which I really love. It kind of gives me Begonia paulensis vibes, which is a type of begonia that is so difficult to get over here in the UK. And it is very much on my wish list. But this one, I don't even want to say it's filling the paulensis box, because like it's not filling a hole. It's very much within its own right a favourite in my collection, but I feel like my yearning for the paulensis has perhaps dwindled slightly since I have grown this begonia. I've also successfully propagated this one this year in a way that I've never propagated begonia before, which is by just taking sections of the leaf and potting them down into, I use sphagnum moss actually, and babies growing that way. And I have found from my personal experience so far, cane begonia does not prop well in that way. But if it's got a structure like this at the bottom, it's kind of more rhizomaceous or fibrous, I believe, that has a much higher success rate of propping in that way. Kind of like you'd propagate a peperomia. And yeah, I got loads of babies from it. So many, in fact, that I didn't really know what to do with, and I ended up giving a load away to friends and stuff. But it's just been a wonderful one to grow, a wonderful one to share the love with. It's also got super hairy stems. I don't know how well you can see that, but especially as the plant gets bigger and kind of beefs up, they are getting thicker and hairier. And I do love a bit of weirdness with my plants. So yeah, that one is great. And then you might be thinking there's a very obvious plant that hasn't been on this list yet. And in fact, I will take you through to the plant room to talk about this one, because it goes without saying it will not fit in this space. So yeah, although I probably sound like a broken record at this point, how could I make a favourites video without my number one plant of the year, my Anthurium pallidiflorum? This plant has just done the most amazing things for me this year, and has just, in the last couple of weeks, given me its first leaf that is actually touching the floor now. So I'm going to have to really think about how I'm going to grow this plant going forward. I'm either going to have to fashion something, meaning that its leaves can kind of hang like that a little bit, or I'm going to have to think about potentially moving it through to the living room and raising it massively up and doing perhaps a bit of an epic grow light setup. But yeah, those are all things on my mind. But this one, not only does it look beautiful, it's got those long, beautiful strappy leaves, it's got the white veination running down the middle, it's so velvety as well. But I have also harvested 2 batches of berries from this plant this year. I pollinated it literally within a month of moving in for the first time, and I was like, will it work? I've never tried pollinating this type of Anthurium before. And I think I got about 180 seeds out of it or something like that. I propped a load of them and they went into prop boxes, and I've now got loads of seedlings. I've sent some of them out to you guys. And then I did another second pollination of the plant maybe 3 months ago. And again, I got loads of berries, probably even more this time. And yeah, they've gone out to people all over the world. So it's lovely to think that we're all able to grow little pieces of this plant now. But yeah, it's one that I can never see myself getting rid of. I just adore it. I really, really love it. It's got such jungly vibes. And whenever I look into this space, I'm just like, oh, it's beautiful. So yes, come back to the cozy bit down here. So yeah, those are my top 10 plants of 2025, top 10, top 11. Please do comment down below and let me know what some of yours were. Even if it's just your top 3, let me know in the comments. I love getting inspired by you guys, and I am still kind of building my wish list for next year. So I would love to know. But in the meantime, I hope you have such a wonderful Christmas, whatever you're doing. I hope you get some downtime. I hope you manage to relax, if nothing else, eat some good food. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.